Alright, so I've been using the new Aiper Scuba X1 Pro Max for a few weeks now. It's Aiper's flagship pool robot, and visually, it's a stunner. The design is sleek, modern, the kind of product you think would make pool ownership easier. But once I actually started using it, yeah, not great. Hey guys, I'm Ryan from Actually Used, where we don't just unbox products, we actually use them to find out if they're the real deal or just riding a wave of good marketing. Today, I'm diving into one of the most hyped pool robots of the year, the Aiper Scuba X1 Pro Max. This is one of the top robots in Aiper's Scuba lineup, the big brother to the Scuba X1 and Scuba X1 Pro, which I've also tested. And the big question is, does his flagship cleaner actually live up to its price tag? So I put it through my full testing process, including a manometer test. It's a tool that measures actual suction power to see how it stacks up in the real world against other top cleaners. And spoiler, you might be surprised about how much you're paying for how little you're getting. I'll go into more detail later, but it only has around half the suction power of other corded pool cleaners in this price range. Stick around because I'm going to break it all down and show you a few other pool robots I think are actually worth your money instead. Let's get into it. First off, the battery life isn't just bad, it's annoying. I found myself recharging this thing constantly. It feels like every time I wanted to use it, it needed more juice. That alone would be frustrating. Then you factor in suction power, which is way weaker than I thought it would be, especially at this price tag. Also, here's the kicker. You can't control it underwater with the app unless you buy a separate $500 add-on, the HydroCalm Plus. So it's supposed to be smart, but out of the box, you're stuck with onboard buttons that aren't super responsive anyway. And that brings us to the price. For what it costs, I expected top tier performance. Instead, you get great design, mediocre cleaning, and a bunch of small headaches. It looks like a premium product, but once you start using it, the experience just doesn't match the price tag. First look, wow, that's impressive. When I first cracked open the box, I'll be honest, I was impressed. This thing looks like a beast. We're talking 9 motors, 40 sensors, and Aiper claims it can move 8,500 gallons of water per hour. Battery life, supposedly up to 5 hours. Sounds like a powerhouse, right? But here's the catch. That up to only applies if you're running the most basic cleaning mode. If you actually want the deep clean, what most people would buy this thing for, you're looking at more like 3 hours max. And then there's the price. I checked the tag and just stared at it. $1,799 for the robot by itself. If you want the full bundle with their HydroCalm Pro model so you can actually control it underwater, that's $2,299. At that point, you're firmly in corded territory where the robots don't need babysitting, charging, or pricey add-ons. Just do basic things. For example, the Dolphin Sigma is around the same price without the HydroCalm and never has to be recharged, has commercial motors, and can be controlled from the app 24/7. Problematic design. I've got to hand it to Aiper. This thing looks like it belongs in a sci-fi movie. The matte black with its carbon accents looks great. But here's where things get annoying. The buttons are extremely difficult to press and use. I'm not kidding. I had to push hard, sometimes multiple times, just to change cleaning modes. So naturally, I switched to using the app, which worked great until the robot went underwater and the connection died instantly. Yep, you heard that right. Unless you buy that $500 HydroCalm Pro bridge, you literally can't control this thing once it's submerged. For a smart robot, that's pretty dumb. Setup, not as smart as advertised. Getting connected to Wi-Fi is straightforward enough, but heads up, it only seems to work on 2.4 gigahertz networks. If you got a fancy mesh system running 5 gigahertz, you might run into issues. But here's the kicker. After every single cleaning cycle, it demands a full recharge every single time. The recharging reality. Let me paint you a picture of what owning this thing actually looks like. If you want a clean pool every day, which most people do, you're looking at multiple charge cycles a week. You'll be fishing it out of the water every single day, waiting 4 to 5 hours while it charges, then hauling this super heavy beast back to the pool and then doing it all again the next day. It adds up fast. That's 14 separate times a week you're dealing with this thing just to keep your pool clean. That's 14 times of stopping what you're doing, walking out to the pool, pulling a soaked robot out of the water, dragging it to the charger, then reversing the process hours later. 14 every single week. Now compare that to a corded cleaner with a weekly timer. You drop it in once, set the schedule, and forget it exists. One quick task at the end of the week to empty the filter basket, and that's it. One interaction versus 14. The math is just brutal when you're actually living with it, and it gets worse. Sometimes you'll walk out and see it just sitting on the pool floor, battery completely drained halfway through the job. So now you're hauling a waterlogged heavy machine that didn't even finish cleaning. Meanwhile, your neighbor's corded dolphin is quietly cruising through its third hour of cleaning without anyone lifting a finger. This thing is supposed to be the premium hands-free option, but in reality, it's turned pool maintenance into a twice-a-day chore. Cordless sounds great on paper, but in practice, it means constant babysitting. Honestly, give me a cord and a weekly timer any day. Stick around until the end and I'll share my favorite corded pool cleaners that are way easier to use, like the Dolphin Sigma and the Dolphin Premier. Suction. So Aiper claims the Scuba X1 Pro Max moves 8,500 gallons per hour. Sounds wild, right? But when we hooked it up to our manometer, which is how we test actual suction strength, not just water movement, it came in at 1.3 psi. That's slightly better than the base X1 at 1.2 psi and the X1 Pro at 1 psi. But let's be honest, not a big jump. And when you stack it next to something like the Dolphin Premier, which pulls 2.2 psi, it starts to look like a pretty small step for such a Pro Max model. That means the Aiper Scuba X1 Pro Max only has around half the suction power of the Dolphin Premier, both of which are around the same price range. Why does that matter? Because suction power is what really determines how well a cleaner actually cleans. GPH just tells you how much water it can actually move, which sounds cool on paper, but doesn't tell you the whole story. We've seen robots that move a ton of water, but still struggle to pull and settle debris. And that's exactly what we notice here. The Pro Max picked up some on the surface stuff and did fine with lighter debris. But when it came to heavier dirt or anything stuck to the floor, you could just feel that lack of pull. It didn't feel like it had muscle to really grab things. And that's what's frustrating. With all the upgrades, 9 motors, big numbers on the bot, the flagship name, you'd expect this thing to pull harder. But even with the bump to 1.3 psi, it still doesn't come close to what we see from top performing corded cleaners. That extra suction makes all the difference and getting a true deep clean without having to run multiple cycles. So yeah, better than other Aiper models, but still not quite the powerhouse it's trying to be. Filtration. Let's talk about the Aiper Scuba X1 Pro Max filtration, or really the lack of it. Aiper says it comes with ultra-fine filters, and yes, I'm putting that in air quotes for a reason. What you actually get is more of a mesh cloth insert than a true pleated or rigid filter. It's something you drop in the bottom of the debris basket. While technically cleans finer stuff than the stock mesh, it's nowhere near what I call ultra-fine. There's not just enough surface area or structure to trap the kind of tiny particles that clog up your water. The debris basket itself is top-loading, which is nice for access. I'll give them that. It's easy enough to pop out and rinse, but it's on the smaller side. If you use a Dolphin Quantum, you know what I mean. The Quantum's XXL max bin is noticeably bigger and designed to hold a serious amount of debris without clogging up mid-cycle. But the real issue, no nano filters. And if you use a Dolphin robot with nano filters, you know what a difference they make. We're talking pleated accordion style filters with deep ridges that trap sand, pollen, and the fine dust that most robots completely miss. It's not just marketing, it actually leaves the water visibly cleaner, even when there's no big debris to scoop. So when you go from a Dolphin with nano filters to the Aiper Scuba X1 Pro Max, the downgrade is immediate. You'll find yourself cleaning the basket more often because it fills up faster, and your pool water just doesn't sparkle the same way. It gets the big leaves, sure, but the small stuff that matters, it either slips through or clogs the cloth filter quickly. In short, the Scuba X1 Pro Max feels like it's playing catch up when it comes to filtration. And in a premium price robot, that's not where you want to be cutting corners. The $500 connectivity paywall. Remember how I mentioned that the connection stops once it's underwater? Well, Aiper's solution is to sell you a $500 upgrade for their HydroCom Pro Bridge. This thing sits in the pool and relays Wi-Fi signals to the robot underwater. Weight? This thing is heavy. Cordless means big batteries, and big batteries mean serious weight. The Aiper Scuba X1 Pro Max clocks in at over 35 pounds dry, and once it's waterlogged, you're easily lifting 40 pounds plus out the pool. No joke. The box even has heavy printed on the side in massive letters, and Amazon reviews are not shy about pointing that out. They're right, it's a beast. Lifting it out of the water is legitimately challenging. It surfaces holding probably a gallon or two of water inside. And even though Aiper includes a little plastic hook to help retrieve it, you're still left doing a full-blown balancing act with a pull pole just to land it on the deck. And when you go to lift it, you can almost hear the cracking of the hook and pull pole. Meanwhile, my corded Dolphin Premier weighs just around 20 pounds, has an easy pull cord, and drains water quickly on the way up. It's in and out, done. Exactly how a pull robot should be. So yeah, the Pro Max might be the flagship, but unless you're looking for a new upper body workout, that weight is a real downside. And it's one of the heaviest consumer robots we've tested. And the cordless design makes retrieval way harder than it needs to be. Value breakdown. What you're actually getting. Let's put this into perspective. For $1,799, you're getting a robot that needs daily recharging, has underwhelming suction, and get this, requires a $500 add-on just to control it underwater. That's not premium. That's paid to unlock basic functionality. Now compare that to something like the Dolphin Premier. It costs about 2/3 of the price, runs a full 3-hour cycle without interruption, has a strong constant suction, and comes with multiple filtration options that actually trap fine debris. Or take the Dolphin Sigma. It's got a real smartphone app, 3 commercial grade motors, and nano filters that are miles ahead of the mesh setup Aiper uses. So yeah, you're looking at paying $500 to $1,000 more for a robot that needs constant babysitting, can't finish a full clean on one charge. What should you buy instead? Look, if you're spending this kind of money on a pool cleaner, let me point you towards some better options. Dolphin Sigma. If you want something in the same price range as the Aiper, but actually worth your money, check out the Sigma. It's got gyroscopic navigation, smartphone connectivity that actually works reliably, and proven corded reliability. The cleaning performance is exceptional, and you won't be dealing with battery degradation down the road. Being able to have the cleaner automatically turn on every day to clean for you is nearly priceless. You just clean the filter once a week. No recharging or anything. Dolphin Premier. This is my go-to recommendation. It's got 4 different filter media options, climbs walls like a champ, and the 3-hour continuous runtime means you get a pool cleaned in one shot. No battery anxiety, no charging breaks, just constant performance. The only downside is there's no app, but you can control it all on the power supply. Final thoughts. I really wanted the Aiper to be great. The idea of a truly cordless, high-performance pool robot is super appealing. And to be fair, the engineering is impressive. It looks the part, feels high-end, and on paper, checks a lot of boxes. But wanting something to work and it actually working, 2 very different things. Until cordless tech can deliver full day runtime without sacrificing suction, and until battery systems can actually survive multiple seasons of harsh pool chemistry, corded cleaners are still the smarter move. The Scuba X1 Pro Max feels more like a concept car, sleek, futuristic, packed with cool tech, but not something I'd rely on every day. If Aiper can fix the power management, charging cord, and underwater connectivity in the next version, I'll happily give it another go. But right now, it's just not ready. Bottom line, it's a beautiful piece of tech that asks a lot. It doesn't give enough back. Save your money, skip the daily babysitting, and go with something proven. Corded robots aren't flashy, but they just work. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.